Hello and welcome back to Fallout 76. Today we're going to talk about the best special boosting foods for Carnivore. Now the reason I'm using Carnivore is that the special boosts you get from food are generally better, not every time, but most of the time, and also the foods are generally easier to get your hands on. And the reason I'm interested in special boosting foods is the ongoing perk card rebalance. The trend with the perk rebalancing has been to go from a fixed benefit to a variable benefit that's based on the associated special with that perk. For example, Ricochet has gone from an 18% chance to trigger to a percent chance that is based on your luck. So the higher your luck, the better your chance for it to trigger. First aid, same kind of deal. It went from stim packs restoring 45% more lost health to stim packs restore health based on your intelligence. So the higher your intelligence, the more healing you'll get from a stim pack. And when you're talking about farming ingredients for food, there are a couple of perks that are very helpful for that. We've got Butcher's Bounty, and this gives you, at maximum rank, which is what you want to use, an 80% chance to find extra meat from animal corpses. Obviously, that just means you don't have to farm as much if you can get more meat from an animal. And Green Thumb gives you double whenever you're harvesting plants. So very often you can actually get really good foods from vendors, which will save you the trouble of farming the ingredients. So one of the places I like to check is the White Spring Restaurant. It's actually right here. So the White Spring Resort is what you want, and that is an instance interior. This is the mall over here. The north entrance is actually the mall. So you actually want the White Spring Resort, and you come over here. This is where Esme is cooking, but you just sit down at this table, pick any chair. It doesn't really matter. Pick any of the chairs, and one of the waiters or waitress will come over to you. And sometimes it can take a while. Sometimes it'll pop right up. Now, the food that they have in their inventory will vary a lot. Sometimes it'll be really good stuff, and sometimes it'll just be kind of mediocre stuff, is what we're getting here, actually. Not all that amazing stuff, except this one. Steep Thistle Tea, which is not what we're talking about today. This is crit damage, but still, you can actually find really good food, especially if you're a melee player. This is kind of my go-to for my melee character. I never farm food because I can always find the melee damage foods here. But this is a good place to go every time you're on a server, basically. Another vendor that sells food is Betty right here. This is a Nuka World on tour. This is right at the fast travel spot. Basically, you fast travel here and just turn around, and she's right there. Now, her inventory is a little more fixed than the other vendors. She won't have the wide variety of foods that the other vendors will have, but she will have some very specific ones that we're interested in, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And then there are camp allies. There's Yasmin Chowdhury and Grandma Junko. Now, I haven't used Grandma Junko, but I'm told her food selection is basically the same or very similar to what Yasmin has. So basically, you go into her inventory. She's very similar to the White Spring Restaurant, and you want to talk about cooking with her, and then you say, I want to buy some recipes. And eventually, after some button clicking, now she's similar to the White Spring Restaurant in that her inventory will vary. She does have a bunch of recipes, so if there's anything you're missing, she doesn't have everything, but she does have a good selection of recipes. But right here, she'll have a bunch of foods, and they tend to be kind of top tier foods as well. Tasty Squirrel Stew, that is a top tier XP food for Carnivore. Not what we're talking about. We already saw Steep Thistle Tea. Seared venison with berries, that's a good luck food. Blood Bug Pepper Steak, that is what is that? Health regen. So yeah, she has top tier foods as well, but her inventory will kind of vary too. So let's just get started with the best strength food, and that is Deathclaw Wellington. Takes boiled water, not a problem. Takes 2 Deathclaw eggs, which that's a bit of a thing. I think that's the biggest limiter to this one. Takes 2 Deathclaw meat, 2 pepper, and wood. Deathclaw Wellington is actually very frequently in the inventory of both Yasmin and the White Spring Restaurant, so that's one you can actually, if this is a food you want to use, that's definitely a place to check. So let's talk about salt, pepper, and spices, actually, and sugar as well. We'll only be using pepper and spices in the recipes today. I think that's all we're using. But if you do foods with multiple ingredients, very frequently you'll need salt, pepper, spices, or sugar, one of those. And unfortunately, there's not really any place to get salt, pepper, spice, at least large quantities. It kind of shows up in small amounts all over the place. So it's something you want to get in the habit of picking up. So we're going to look at a few places where you can get those items. Now, the first is in Flatwoods. Flatwoods right here. I mean, this is kind of baby's first area. The first quest you go to will send you here. And inside the restaurant or restaurant bar, whatever you want to call it, right here on the pool table. Now, this is a spawn point that can be various things. Right now it's sugar, but it can be any of the other things. It could be salt, pepper, spices. And that's kind of how the spawn is in this location, is they're not set things. I mean, I've seen this be salt, pepper and pepper. Right now it's pepper and sugar. And then if we go outside of the cooking area, there is even a few more on the table. See, we found some spices here. Again, it can be other things. Usually on the ground. Yep, right here on the ground. This is spices. It could be other things, sugar, salt, pepper. And then on the table right here, we've got salt and pepper. I think that's what this always is. And then this is another variable spawn point right here. This can be salt, pepper, spice, or sugar. On the subject of sugar, that is not something I pick up. I pick up everything else. I don't pick up sugar when I encounter it because you can make it anytime you want, as much as you want. So I don't see any reason to fill my my stash with sugar. So my go-to for sugar is actually right here. Since we're in Flatwoods, we'll just have a look at this really quickly. My go-to for sugar is to go to the inn, actually the motel down there. But you just run along the river, and right here, Snaptail Reeds is what you want for that. And if you go down the river and follow it around the corner, so this is where we are. If we basically go down here, now this is going to be all dry, there's no water here, but if you basically go down the river and just hit the corner and go all the way down to here, I mean, not to Hill of Folk Hot Dogs, but right next to it, there are Snaptail Reeds all over the place. And if you just pick all that up, you can get yourself 30, 40, 50 sugar for maybe 5 minutes of your time. So that's why I don't pick it up whenever I find it, because I can craft it. That's not the same thing, you know, salt, pepper, spices, that's not something you can craft. So you want to take those whenever you have the opportunity. Another good spot to hit is the Overseer's Home. So the Overseer's Home is nice because a lot of it is instants. The outside isn't, but we've got a spice right here. This is a constant spice spawn unless somebody else has picked it up. And then you want to go inside the house. And this one's good because there are 3 spots to get spice inside and 1 salt and pepper. So there's a spice right here on the bookshelf. There's another one right here on the counter. And there's another one right here on the shelf. And there's a sugar if you want to do that. And then on the table, there is 1 salt and 1 pepper. And this is an instanced area, so you don't have to worry about other players coming ahead of you and taking this stuff. Another good spot is the Wayward. And what's good about this, another instanced area, and this has got salt and pepper. There's 2 of them. There's 2 on this table, 1 of each, and then 1 on this table. This one can be kind of tough because this guy's always sitting here, so you maybe have to kind of maneuver around behind him. But there's 2 salt, 2 pepper, another instanced area. But like I said, once you get in the habit of trying to spot this stuff, it is kind of everywhere, but it's just small amounts. So you just want to get in the habit of picking it up whenever you see it. So let's look at some places for Deathclaw eggs and Deathclaw meat. Deathclaw eggs are the most difficult because they're one of those things that have a chance to spawn. So I can tell you where they all are, but if you get unlucky, you can actually find none at all of the locations, except this one. This is one of those ones that's a static spawn. It's Dark Hollow Manor, and you actually want to go to the atrium upper level. Of course, you have to have done some of the Skyline Valley quests to be able to get in here. But once you fast travel, you just go through the double doors, or 2, not double doors, but 2 sets of doors and then a 3rd set of doors. And you just want to go downstairs and keep going straight here. And you're just going to go to the security office, which is up these stairs. And on the shelf behind this desk, or yeah, that's a shelf. There is a Deathclaw egg, and this is a static spawn, and it's also an instanced area, so you don't have to worry about other players taking it. Now, there was a time in the game when you could actually farm this over and over again. You could just take it, server hop, and take it again. That's been patched. You can't do that anymore. You actually have to reset your picked up items list for this to respawn again. So for Deathclaw eggs, there is a spot, Nuka World on tour, inside the Tunnel of Love. Now, the event is not going. So basically, you go in the entrance, you follow the tunnel until you get to this area right here, and there are Deathclaw nests in here. There are, I think there's 4 right here. It's hard to tell, it's all kind of looks like one, but each one of these nests, yeah, there's 4 of them. Each one of them has a chance to spawn a Deathclaw egg. It's not a high chance, and you can see we got unlucky. None of these, there's 4 of them right here, but no Deathclaw egg has been found. And that's why this is such a frustrating recipe, is because Deathclaw eggs are a chance to spawn. They're not a guaranteed spawn. It can be really tough to get a lot, which is why I check vendors. Vendors are usually my #1 source for this particular recipe. And there's 1 more nest, and it's actually up the scaffolding. Now, if you've done this event, you know where this is, because this is where the Deathclaw spawns as well. But right here, there is another nest, and look at that, we got lucky. There is a Deathclaw egg in here. So yeah, this is, we got lucky, but yeah, 5 nests, 1 egg. Not a really high % chance. Now, Deathclaw Island is a spot where we can get some Deathclaw meat and Deathclaw eggs. You can get up to 2 eggs here. So first we have the Deathclaw coming out of his hidey hole. So there's Butcher's Bounty triggered, so we're gonna get 2 Deathclaw meat here. Now the eggs are actually loose spawns. They're not in the nest. There we go. So there's 2 spawns for the eggs. There's 1 right here. They can move around though. So it's one of those things, if you don't see them right away, you have to look a little bit. So there's 1 egg here. And the other one can spawn like right here by this suitcase. So there's one spawn here and the other one is like right, in this part. So they're not inside the nest itself because there is no inside of the nest. They spawn loose. So that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, Deathclaw egg or 2 Deathclaw eggs possible here and Deathclaw meat as well. Another spot you could check out is the abandoned waste dump. Now that is where you go for the Enclave quest line to start that. It has 2 Deathclaws inside and 3 Deathclaw nests. So there's a chance to get eggs and meat. There is Hopewell Cave. There's a Deathclaw in there and a Deathclaw egg spawn. Again, all these are a chance for the eggs. It's never a guaranteed spawn other than the Skyline Valley location. And then we have Thunder Mountain Substation TM02 right there by Watoga. Now that is just a Deathclaw, but it is guaranteed and it would be Deathclaw meat. An oversight on my part, I didn't actually say what the buff was. So Deathclaw Wellington gives you +6 strength for 1 hour with Carnivore. With Strange in Numbers, that would be 7.5. Let's suppose you don't want to farm the ingredients or you've tried finding it in vendors and you've just been unlucky. There is a very easy option that I would actually go for as an alternative. And that is right here from her, from Betty. In her inventory, this will be a static thing. Every time you join a server, she'll have this in her inventory. And that is this, Gulper Stuffed Foot. The bonus is 4 rather than 6, and then that would go up to 5 with Strange in Numbers. But the good thing about this is you don't have to farm it. You just come to her every time you join a server and you can just buy it. So this is a much easier option than Deathclaw Wellington. It just isn't quite as strong. So this would be the option that I would choose. You can do Deathclaw Steak, 2 Deathclaw Meat gives you, I think that's only a 30-minute bonus though. So this would be my choice for the easy option for strength. For perception, we are going to do Stingwing Stew, which gives you +6 perception for 1 hour. Strange in Numbers boosts that up to 7.5. So for Stingwing Stew, we need spices, stingwing meat, and potatoes. Spices we've already talked about. Potatoes, that's something you should be able to grow at your camp, no problem. So it's just the stingwing meat, which is the limiter on this one. So for stingwing meat, we come to Bleeding Kate's Grindhouse, which is just to the right of Riverside Manor. Now, there are only 3 stingwings here, but you can just server hop this location over and over again. And for whatever reason, I'm not hearing any buzzing. And there are 3 there we go. Very quiet today. And if we have Butcher's Bounty, we get 2 stingwing meat, so 80% of the time on that. They're being very quiet. That's very strange. Usually, there we go. There's the other one. So there's 3 stingwings, and we got the 2 stingwing meat with that one and a little bit of damage from them. So if you get lucky with Butcher's Bounty, you'll get 6 stingwing meat every time you visit this place. So you can just server hop, just basically stay at this location, just server hop over and over again until you get as much meat as you want. Now, if that's just too much work for you, the easy option with that is Wolf Ribs. Now, Wolf Ribs gives you perception of 4 rather than 6. That would be 5 with Strange in Numbers. And it only lasts for 30 minutes instead of 60 minutes. So I think this is a significant downgrade, but it is much easier to make. It just takes 1 wolf meat. And wolves are pretty easy. You can go to Automaker Cabin. There's usually, I think, 5 or 6 there. And the Investigator's Cabin, I think that'll give you another 3. So wolves are actually pretty common. So if you want to go that route rather than this route, it'll still give you a decent perception boost. Now for endurance, we are going for pemmican. This is kind of the easy option as well. It is the best boost and the easiest option. So it gives you +6 endurance for an hour, and that's 7.5 with Strange in Numbers. But the great thing about pemmican, actually several great things. Number 1, it weighs very little. Now with True Hiker, it weighs 0.01, which means it basically weighs nothing. And it also has no condition bar because it never spoils. So it's super awesome. And another thing, it actually just generates at your camp if you have the pemmican collector. So this is what the pemmican collector looks like. It'll hold up to 10. And this was a previous season reward. So if you started after that season or you never managed to collect it, you can actually get it from Mortimer. He is the gold bullion vendor at the Raiders. You need maximum reputation and it costs you 1,250 gold. I would highly recommend this. If you don't have it, this is by far the best endurance food. So there are a couple of daily quests that'll actually give you pemmican if you don't have the pemmican collector. Kitty Corner Cabins up here, they're the Scout Daily. So if you do Operation Tidy, the reward for that will be 1 pemmican. And over here at Dolly Sod, Stings and Things, that daily will also reward you with 1 pemmican. So that's an option if you don't have the pemmican collector. And another low effort alternative would be Mutt Chops. Now this only gives you 4 endurance versus 6, and it lasts 30 minutes instead of 60 minutes. But it only takes 1 mongrel dog meat to make. Mongrel dogs are actually pretty easy to find. You can find them at the Charleston landfill, usually 5 or 6 down there. Between the Overseer's Camp and Greene County Lodge on the road, about halfway, there is a spawn with 3 dogs. And there's usually a bunch hanging around Aaron Holt Homestead. So that's an option. If you don't have access to the pemmican collector, that's a pretty easy option to get your endurance up a little bit. So the options for charisma are actually pretty limited, so we're really going to look at just one, and that is the Mothman Egg Omelet. It just takes one Mothman egg, it gives you +4 charisma for 30 minutes. That would be +5 with strange in numbers. So there's a few options for Mothman eggs. So Point Pleasant, probably the most popular one. So right here by the water, there is a bunch around this table. So if we go up from the water and just around right through here, you want the Mothman statue, this big statue right here. And all around the statue are a bunch of Mothman eggs. There's some over there, there's some right here, just kind of all over. This should give you, enough to last you a while. So now we have intelligence, and this is probably the weak, at least for me, this is kind of the weakest spot for Carnivore, is that your option is basically this, broiled scorched beast brain. That's kind of it. So it's very simple to make. It's 6 intelligence for half an hour. The problem is getting scorched beast brains in any kind of decent quantity at all. And the reason why scorched beast brains are a problem is that scorched beasts are not guaranteed to drop any specific thing. There are several, I think there's 5 different kinds of meat that they can drop. So it's a volume game. You want to kill as many scorched beasts as you can. So we are right here at, where are we? We're at Fisher Prime. So that can get us up to 3 scorched beasts. Make sure you have Butcher's Bounty equipped, and then cross your fingers that you'll get what you want. The other downside is that hunting scorched beasts always turns into a bit of a thing because you get attacked by tons of scorch, which I did here. Sometimes they do that. They just fly away. So scorched beast brains, kind of a pain. And unfortunately, yep, while I'm talking, another scorched. I've killed a bunch of them already. So let's check the 2 that we found that are dead. So we've got 2 scorched beast lungs. That's one of the meats, and that's a good agility food. Not the best one because it only lasts for 30 minutes. And it's also unpredictable. I mean, anything that requires scorched beast is kind of an unpredictable thing. Let's see if he stays around long enough and I can hit him. There we go. So now we have 3 to check. Hopefully, sometimes they fall into the fissure. That's a thing as well. So, and this one gave us 2 scorched beast meat. So we kind of struck out here, and let's see if we can actually farm this one without falling in. There we go. And we got liver, which is a luck food. I mean, the bonuses you get from scorched beast, the different kinds of meats are always really good. The problem is you can't farm them really reliably. You just have to put in a lot more effort for scorched beast stuff than you do for other things. So we kind of struck out on this one. But that would be the general strategy. Basically, just visit different fisher sites. You might have to server hop. There's quite a few in the, there's 3 different ones, it looks like, in the Cranberry Bog. There's another one over here by Mosstown. That's where another bunch of scorched. I mean, that's the thing. You'll always run into a lot of scorched. And there's one up here at the top of the map near Vault 79, just called Fisher Site. And unfortunately, scorched beast brains are not something I've seen too often in vendors. In fact, I'm not sure that I ever have. So this is one of those things you want to farm. Let your friends know that that's what you want if they're playing herbivore or they just don't want to bother with the foods to get your hands on. But Butcher's Bounty is a must because the stuff is fairly rare. But when it comes to agility, it's really tough to beat the options that Carnivore has. Carnivore has so many options and they're all very easy to get. So we've got ground mole rat, and these all give the same bonus. So ground mole rat, +6 agility for an hour. That's 7.5 with strange in numbers. We've got fried radroach on a stick, which is the same bonus. Fried scorpion on a stick, same bonus. Got Mirelurk soft shell cake. And we have squirrel on a stick, and they all give you +6 for an hour or +7.5 with strange in numbers. And the nice thing is we're not gonna make any of these. So the White Spring Restaurant and the Camp Allies can give you squirrel on a stick, ground mole rat, or Mirelurk softshell cakes. It has a chance. I find them very frequently. The nice thing is because, I mean, their inventory does rotate, but because there's so many good agility options, most of the time, those sources will have one of them. So I just buy them whenever I see them. But really for agility, you don't need to check your Camp Ally. You don't need to check the restaurant. I would just come to Betty every time you join a server, because she will always have these 2 things. She'll have 1 fried radroach on a stick, 1 fried scorpion on a stick. They both give you +6 agility. And just every time you join a server, buy those things from her, just 1 of each. And that's 2 hours of an agility bonus. And you don't really need to check any other sources, which is why I never craft agility foods. It's a top tier food and I can always find it. And this is still gonna be cheaper, even though I'm spending caps. By the time I spend caps on fast traveling, I'll probably spend more than that than just buying these, and I'll save a whole ton of time. So for luck, we have seared venison with berries, which is a bit of a thing to make. There is an easy option, which I will get to, but this takes pepper, purified water, radstag meat, starlight berries, and wood. Pepper we've talked about. Purified water, just put a water purifier at your camp, and that should spit out all that you need. So really, it's the radstag meat and starlight berries, of which we need 3 of each. So for radstag meat, I fast traveled to Dent and Sons Construction. And this is the direction you're facing when you show up, and you just want to turn around and go the other direction up the hill just a little bit, and you'll see a barn. There we go. There's the barn. That's what we're looking for. Now we're on top of the barn. So this is the view from the top of the barn, but you can see we've got a field. There's corn there, and there are albino radstags that all ran away. All right. They all run away. If I was down on the ground, they would all attack me, but there are albino radstags here. There's usually, I think, half a dozen or so. This is my go-to spot. I know there's other spots on the map, but for me, this is kind of my go-to spot just because there's so many. And this should give you all of the radstag meat that you need. Obviously, if it's not enough, you can just server hop and just farm this location over and over again until you have what you need. Now for starlight berries, there's a few locations. Black Mountain Ordnance Works is actually a pretty easy one. And you just want to go towards the buildings over here. There's not much here. There's a few Protectrons and some Eyebots, but in terms of enemies, there isn't much that you actually have to worry about. And starlight berries are kind of all over. There's a plant right here. They can kind of be hard to spot until you're right on top of them, but there's a plant here. I don't remember how many plants there are. There's quite a few though. Seems like there's maybe 10 or so, something like that. There's quite a few. But you can see we've got a Protectron, and that's kind of it. But there's a thing. The problem with starlight berries is sometimes the plants will actually not spawn berries. So you can actually find the plant and it'll have nothing on it. But they're just kind of all over the place. See, like this. So here's a plant and it didn't spawn any berries. So it's not as bad as Deathclaw eggs where you have a really low chance. Most of the time, there's a couple more plants here. Most of the time, you'll actually get berries on the plant. Another spot that I like to hit, not because it has a lot, but because it's super quick and easy, is the isolated cabin. And there's just 2 plants here. There's one on either side of the building, right there and there. So there's quick starlight berries right there. So probably the best source of starlight berries is the deep. And there are 2 ways to get in the deep. There's this cave. That's not the way you want to go. You actually want to go from the entrance here. You fast travel to the golf club or the White Spring Lookout, and it's right here. And if you've done the Wastelanders questline, if you've done the stuff for Foundation, you'll actually have come here. So this is what it looks like. This is the door you go into. So there are actually 2 spots inside of the deep. So the first one, that is where the communist base is down there. We'll hit that in a second. And the other is through the moss right here at the end of the tunnel. It is quite a little bit of a walk though. So once you get to the end of the tunnel, you'll end up in a room, or not a room, but an open area like this. And there are a handful of starlight berry bushes. Not all of them will have berries on them, just like everywhere else. Sometimes they will have none, but there's a handful here, right there. There's usually a cricket somewhere. See, there's 4 so far. We're actually doing pretty well. 5. Okay, so that's actually pretty good. Very often when I come here, there's another cricket. Very often when I come to this spot, we'll have 1 or 2 bushes that won't have any berries on them, but it looks like all of them do this time. So that's actually pretty lucky. And then you want to turn around and go back down to where you came from, to the entrance to the branch that goes to the communist base. So what you want is actually down there. You can see there's plants all the way around. Now this is a little bit of a thing. There will be lots of enemies that will attack you as you make your way to the bottom. Okay, so once you've dealt with all that nonsense, there's a lot of enemies. They are all over the place. Now here's a situation where having a jetpack is beneficial because you've got, some of them are really up high like this one. But it's all around the base. There's another one that's kind of up high, and another one's up high, but it looks like it's empty, and it's just all around. So you just basically make a circle around the base over here, and that one's empty, but that one's got some. There's usually another power armor guy right there, and his friend right there. All right, and you just kind of make a circle. This one's kind of didn't bloom anything, but we've got more over here. And eventually you make your way back around to the front, and this should give you a pile of starlight berries between the 3 locations I showed you. That's the run I've done. I know they show up in other places, but that's the run I use, is those 3 spots. And that gives me all the starlight berries that I need. Now, a much simpler but less potent option would be Awesome Opossum Bacon. It gives you 4 luck for 30 minutes, but it only takes 1 opossum meat to make. Possums are pretty easy to farm right here at the White Spring cooking area. These guys are kind of all over the place, so that's an easier option. I mean, it's a lot easier, but it's obviously not as good. But that is the easy option for luck. And there you have it, the best carnivore foods for boosting your specials. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit one of the buttons, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Thank you very much.